An athlete's obsession, fan-made Lifetime movie. Synopsis. For over a decade, Melanie Cooper has dedicated herself to her family's recreational center, working tirelessly alongside her brother. With a supportive fiancé by her side, Melanie appears to have it all. However, her world is turned upside down when she captures the attention of Jace Harrison, a renowned basketball player whose infatuation with her spirals into a dangerous obsession. As Jace's fixation intensifies, Melanie's life and the lives of her loved ones are placed in grave danger, leaving her to fight to protect those she holds dear as the threat escalates. Story. The movie starts with a hostess at a restaurant late at night during closing time. She says goodbye to one of her colleagues. As she is leaving the restaurant, she sees a hooded person at the other end of the parking lot, closing in on her. The woman tells them to leave her alone and that she'll call the police. The woman then runs to her car to get away from them, and the hooded person runs up to her car and bangs on the window. 3 years later, a woman named Melanie and her brother Jared are at the recreational center that they own. They've both been taking care of the place for over a decade. It was originally owned by their father, who passed away the previous year from a heart attack. Melanie then gets a call from her fiancé, Kyle. Melanie was just recently engaged to Kyle not long ago, and they had plans to buy a house together. As Kyle lived in a tiny apartment and Melanie still lives at her brother's place. Kyle calls her to remind her that a showing for a house that's on the market was happening later that day at 4 o'clock. Melanie asks his brother to take over for her. When the couple arrives at the house, they are greeted by the real estate agent Linda Cyrell. Linda gives them a plate of cookies she baked from scratch and shows them around the house. Linda tells Melanie and Kyle that there are other interested buyers hoping to look at the house, but there's a chance things might work out in their favor. As Melanie and Kyle leave, there is a hooded person hiding in the bushes snapping pics of the two with a camera. Melanie thought that Linda was sweet, and she really liked the house and its features. The next day, Melanie goes out to lunch with her two friends Taylor and Kendra. Melanie discusses the house that she and Kyle have plans to buy and move into. As the three women are leaving the restaurant, they run into a man who introduces himself as Peter Enders. He was the head coach of the basketball team from the nearby college, the South Carolina Ocelots. Peter heard about Cooper's courts from a friend of his and asked Melanie if it would be possible for the basketball team to host some of their matches there, since their home court was currently being remodeled at the moment. Melanie tells Peter that he is more than welcome to have his team play, but he'll have to go on their website to book times that are available. That night, Melanie is in bed and is looking up the South Carolina Ocelots basketball team online. Jared walks in the room and Melanie tells him about the weird encounter she had with the coach and shows him the website with the team's roster. Jared thinks that it would be a great idea to have them come, since nobody really uses the basketball courts anyway. So the next morning, Melanie calls Coach Peter, and he tells her that he has booked all the times that his team can play. The Ocelots' next home game was to happen on Friday at noon, and Peter would greatly appreciate it if Melanie and her brother could make it. As Melanie is driving to the recreational center, she notices a car is following her, so she calls Jared to tell him about it. Jared thinks Melanie should try and make another turn to see if the car would still follow her. Sure enough, it was. Melanie was starting to get worried, but once she pulled into the recreational center, the car stopped tailing her and drove to the other direction. Melanie brushes off the incident as her being paranoid, and the driver was just going the same directions as her. Someone is watching Melanie again from their car, and is also taking pictures on a camera as she is entering the recreational center. One of Melanie's coworkers, Brianna, was at the front door putting up posters about the upcoming basketball game. Later on, while Melanie is training one of her clients, Charlie, a woman is watching her next to one of the gym equipment. It is the same woman from the beginning. That night, Melanie is brushing her teeth when she hears a sound from downstairs. She goes down to check and sees that the back door was left open. Melanie closes the door and grabs a fireplace poker. And once again, the hooded person is at Melanie and her brother's home, taking pictures of Melanie from the window. Melanie sees that the back door is open and goes to close it. Melanie is startled when her brother Jared taps on her shoulder from behind. Melanie asked what Jared was doing home and thought he was still working at the gym. Jared told Melanie that Brianna was to take over for the night and that Jared could go home. Melanie asked Jared if he was the one who left the back door open, and Jared says he didn't. The brother-sister duo then go outside in the backyard to check if anyone was outside. Eventually they go back inside, and Melanie came to the conclusion that she had accidentally left the door open earlier that day and forgot about it. The hooded person was hiding right behind the house the whole time, and then runs off. Melanie gets a call from Kyle the next morning saying that he got reservations for a fancy restaurant just for the two of them. At the restaurant, Melanie tells Kyle that she's been feeling on edge lately. Not just because of the car following her, or the back door of her house being left open, but also because of the hefty responsibility she had of carrying on her father's business. Kyle assures her that she's the bravest woman he knows, and that she'll pull through, with the help of her brother as well. That makes Melanie feel a lot better. That same woman from the gym is also there working as one of the waitresses at another table, and is about to approach Melanie and Kyle, but another waitress takes her place. Later on, however, she comes back to their table to pour water for them. When Melanie and Kyle head for their car after their dinner, that same car starts to follow them. When Kyle drops Melanie off at her house, the person in the car watches them from afar. They are also holding a printed photo of Melanie,